Welcome everybody on another 1 hour Academy Hour, this time about artificial intelligence. I am Sonja Zinken. I'm a lecturer at the University of Applied Sciences in Utrecht and also a medical educationist. And my co-host, Dinah, please.
Hi, I'm Dinah Paritzky. I'm also a fellow of the European Academy and I'm on the education committee, as is Sonja, and I work at the Hadassah College, Jerusalem.
If wanted, you can use a translation by using the captions. There's several languages. Some are better than others, but please use it so that you can see the translation from what we are saying. The program for today. Can I have these slides for the program, please?
What are we doing now?
Can you see? Thank you very much. Yes, that's lovely. You can go to the program for today, which is the next slide. So today's program, first of all, we're going to have a look what we already know about artificial intelligence, and we're going to have a look at AI and optometry, and of course there will be plenty of time and room for discussion. We're quite a large group, so I'm looking forward to a lively discussion and learn from each other as well. Can I have the next slide, please? So what is AI? AI is a technology that enables the computers and machines to simulate human intelligence and problem-solving capabilities. So it's simulating. They are not replacing us. And I think that is one to remember, and that will be in our discussions. We'll have a look at that as well, as what can AI actually do? Next slide. Now we've created a Mentimeter because we've got a few questions for you all. Dinah is going to show a QR code, or you can go straight into the Mentimeter. I'm going to ask you questions about whether you're familiar with AI, what tasks you're using AI for, which AI tools you're using, and whether you think that your AI tool has access to the internet. So if you please use the QR code and answer the questions.
I need to actually go in and start presenting it. I'm going to actually need to stop share for a second so I can go and start my Mentimeter.
There's still people coming in as well, so they can join. So for the ones that have just joined us, we're going to do a Mentimeter where we've prepared a few questions.
Let's go back to the slide that you can see to go in. You can either go to menti.com and put in the code, or you can scan the QR. Sonja, you can see the screen of the QR.
Yes, I can. Yes, we can see the QR code as well.
And I'm going to switch over to the...
Utrecht met Jeruzalem samen.
So, okay.
Maurice.
So let's have a look at the first question. I can see people are still answering, but we can go over to it now. So the first thing we want to know is, are you familiar with AI? So we have somewhat is the overwhelming majority at the moment. We have 2 people who are not familiar at all. That's fine. I hope by the end of this evening you'll feel some confidence to get a little bit more familiar. And then we have 3 who are very familiar, which means there's a few people haven't answered yet. If you want a second to answer. Okay, so the minority are very familiar with AI, which makes sense because it's new. I think I would choose very familiar. Sonja, what would you choose?
Yes. Very familiar as well, yes.
Right. So here's the next question. Can AI replace us as optometrists and or as educators? Can you guys see the questions? Can you see the options to answer?
Use the other QR code with that question, actually.
No, it's the same. It's the same code. It's the same code. There we go. There we go. Here we are. It's the same. It's the same Mentimeter. It's the same code. So you can answer.
Oh.
Here we go. Let's wait for a few. Some components. In time, maybe. Okay, that's a little depressing.
Yeah.
Anybody else think the short answer is no? I think I would agree with all of that. By the way, I asked ChatGPT this question earlier on, and ChatGPT that know that we should be collaborators, not competitors, but we'll see. I think we're going to move on to the next question. To get a bit of feedback from the audience, what tasks are you using AI for? If any. I mean, most people said somewhat or yes, very. So presumably you're using AI. So what tasks are you using AI for? I think it takes a minute when I go on to the next slide before it comes up for the audience. There's a tiny bit of a delay here. There we go. Like a lexicon, writing text, summarizing content, generating content. That's interesting. Translations, image generating, finding information for sure. Information gathering, recipes. Okay. Talked about that
What to
earlier.
wear. I've learned that one. What to wear.
Developing infographics. Nice. Anyone else? Okay, again, I hope by the end of this evening's Academy Hour, you'll be seeing a lot more things that you could be thinking of to use it. And I think this is my last question. Which AI tools are you actually using these days? I think I might have one more question. We'll have a look in a second. Which AI tools are you using? And by the way, there we go, of course, ChatGPT, Claude, that's what I was expecting to see. But I know there's others as well that people are using there. ChatGPT is not surprisingly the main one. It's the biggest one on the word cloud. So that's what most people are using. I think what you use, Sonja, is not up there at the moment. Am I right?
No, I'll explain it later why we were actually using something else in Utrecht.
Perplexity, not any. Okay, fair enough. And the last slide, there's a spelling mistake there, I'm so sorry. Does your AI tool have internet access? Yes, no, or don't know?
I learned that from you actually. Last time we did this one, I didn't know that.
And no one is saying no, and I can tell you for a fact that if we go back to here one second, I'm going to go back. If we go back to that word cloud, there are definitely AI tools there which do not have internet access, which I know because I checked.
We don't see the word cloud. Dinah, we don't see the word cloud.
We only see the QR code.
Yeah.
Oh. What, did Mentimeter disappear?
No, we just see the QR code.
All right, let's go back to here. Can you see Mentimeter now?
Yes.
Right. It's interesting. I don't know why it changed. So I'm not going to go back to the words cloud. On the words cloud, people said they were using Claude, they were using Perplexity. Some of those tools do not have internet access. So there's a disparity here between what people are using and what people think they know about their tool. And that's pretty important. So I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint. You can see that now?
Not yet. I think there's a delay in that. I can still see your menti.com.
Wow, that's so interesting. There's a definite delay. Let's go back to duplicate again. And tell me, can you see PowerPoint?
That's still the menti.com.
Wow, that's a real delay because I'm screen sharing the PowerPoint. So let's wait for it to get to your app. What can I say? You know what? I'm going to do a new share. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, it's better.
Sometimes it just doesn't like to. Right, got it now?
That's the one. Yes, that's the one. Thank you very much. So AI is actually everywhere. So although some people might say, no, I'm not using it, Google, Snapchat, smartphones, Netflix, when you're buying clothing or when you're going through the internet looking for certain things, Siri, Street View, it all uses AI. So it's actually everywhere. So you can't deny that it's not going to be there, that you stay away from it. It's there and it's here to stay. If you can go to the next slide, please. And we've already had the question about the programs that everybody is using, and ChatGPT came out first. What we're using at the university is Microsoft Copilot, and it all has to do with security. Because as we already said, you should see our AI as big boxes, and we put information in the boxes. And the reason for using Copilot is that we can use European law instead of American law in asking it questions. So if I put any information in there, it's actually being protected and not going to go to America. And that is one of the reasons why we're using Copilot. And the other advantage is that it actually is similar to the paid version of ChatGPT. Now, all the others on here, Claude, Perplexity, Adobe, Bard, Google Gemini, they're all different AI programs that you can use. I like Adobe Firefly to make pictures. With Microsoft Copilot, I find the pictures a bit odd. If I ask them, can you just create a picture showing people from the age of 0 till 100, they all seem to be related to each other, and they all have certain eye diseases. So it's so odd and so weird. And the other thing that I really don't like about the creating of pictures through Microsoft Copilot is the many spelling mistakes it makes. Although when you look at the photograph, you're like, okay, that's a mistake. But if English is not your language, and then you are actually looking at what is written there, it just looks like spelling mistake, and it looks so horrible in a presentation. So I stopped using that, and I prefer to use the Adobe Firefly, because that one uses more real-like photographs.
I actually like to use ChatGPT for pictures. I'm using the paid version, ChatGPT 4, and there's a little bit to and fro if you want it to make pictures, but it's made some really nice ones for me recently.
If you can go to the next one.
Yeah.
We've already said that we're using ChatGPT or a Copilot to ask questions. And this is one thing that we want to talk to you about as well, the environmental impact. When I'm asking Google a question, there's less environmental impact than there is with a Copilot, because you can imagine the amount of machinery, the electronics that go in there, that uses water, it uses electricity, and that's actually not environmental friendly. So although it does help us with certain problems in the environment, so you can ask them questions, by doing so, you're also putting an impact on it. So if there's a question that you can also ask Google, use that instead of using a ChatGPT or a Microsoft. And this is one of the things that actually the UN is looking into as well, because Dinah just explained it to me that it was your brother, wasn't it, that went to a conference.
My son was at a conference.
Your son. Yeah, so and they were actually discussing the environmental impact of AI, and I think it's one that we certainly have to look into as well, and keep an eye out for. Mm-hmm. You can go to the next slide. Now, what we want to do next is split this discussion into two things, because I'm going to look at clinical optometry, so the use of AI in clinical optometry, and then we're going to have a look at the use of AI in education, because they're two different things and different ways of approaching the use of AI. So if we look at AI in optometry...
just before I do, just to make it clear to everyone, these pictures were, of course, created by AI, and I specifically asked for a picture showing clinical optometry and a picture showing education optometry, and these are pictures that were created instantaneously. I think I used ChatGPT for that.
Mm-hmm. So AI in optometry, we can think about diagnosing eye conditions and diagnosing retinal disease, and I've put a question mark behind it, because the question is it safe to use? Is it really going to help us, or is it going to hinder us, or are we going to make mistakes? So if we can have a look at the pros and cons on the next slide. Just click through them straight away, Dinah, that's fine. If we look at the pros, it's going to help us with making better decisions. If you are, for example, a new optometrist, and we all know when we started as optometrist, the amount of eye disease that we know is quite limited. There are now programs that help you with a differential diagnosis. We get to the minus of that, but in general, it will actually help you it comes up with different eye conditions, and you can actually make a decision that, do I actually know all these eye conditions or not? And if I don't know them, what is it I need to do to get more information about it? It also gives us an increased efficiency in diagnosis. Quite often when, there's a condition I don't know about, what I'll do, I'll Google it or I get a book. That takes time. Whilst AI can help me with the diagnosis, and it can also help me with coming up with the best treatment plan. If we have two people exactly the same condition, we might still have to treat them in a different way. Well, if I have to look this all up in Google, it's going to take some time, whilst AI can help me look through a lot of information, summarize it for me, and it helps me this way to come to a conclusion. The other thing it can do is save time of administrative tasks. We all need to write letters, and it's quite a good way of writing letters. It can make you an example letter. All these things save enormously amount of time, which then I can use that time again for patient care. On the other hand, if I'm putting patient information into AI, there is the privacy and security thing. So I have to be very careful with the amount of private information I put into an AI. If we look at machinery, for example, an OCT that helps us, most of us have an OCT machine, we take photographs, but if we want to have the latest one that actually tells us what the eye condition is, that again is an investment. The other thing is that if I buy a machine, my fellow optometrist, his machine might not be interoperability between each other. So every machine has their own information, and that is a disadvantage, because what you would like is a machine that actually has the same input overall, so that there cannot be any differences in answers. Then, of course, there is the question, are humans going to be redundant? Is there going to be unemployment? Yes and no. You can think about training people in a different way, so that they just, it's going to create new jobs as well. So that's one of these questions I can't really answer, but, there are options available. On the other hand, I can imagine, especially with those that have difficulties using computers, they're going to have difficulties to do a job with computers and AI. And for example, if you want to ask the right prompt to AI, you also need to have a certain intellect to make sure you put the right information and ask the right question. And there's the discussion of lack of creativity. Now, we've used AI to create this PowerPoint, and it came up with things, and so certain pictures we liked, other pictures we didn't like. So we still had to use our own creativity to, in the end, make this presentation. So yes, you can take everything for granted, but in the end, you still have to actually decide whether this is what you want to say and whether the pictures that we're showing are actually clear enough. Now, if we go to the next one, there's at the moment, of course, a lot of the artificial intelligence in optometry. It's really interesting to keep up with research. If we look at retinal imaging, we have to ask ourselves the different machinery. Of course, there's going to be research and comparing the different brands and how we're going to use it. This is something ongoing. These ones are from 2023. In the meantime, we've already had so many more research about retinal imaging, but also in using it in optometry. And it's not only about the machinery we're going to use, but also how artificial intelligence is going to help us, the ethics about it. So there's a whole new research world occurring now. And I think it's a challenge, but also a positive challenge. Because it's especially, I'm very much into the psychology of patients, and I think it's really interesting to see what AI does to psychology of patients, and also how we work together. So it's one to follow, definitely. And Dinah is now going to continue with the education impacts.
I think just before I do, I'm just going to stop share a second. Does anybody have any questions to Sonja about using? We will have a discussion later, but if anybody's got any burning questions right now to ask Sonja about using AI in clinical optometry, you can open your microphones or ask on the chat.
At the moment, there's nothing in the chat.
That's anything at the moment. All right, so let's go back to education. Let's just do this. Okay, so using AI in education, this is my personal thing that I like. It can make life easier for us. It can make our teaching easier. And I think the first point here is the most important point of all. AI is very, very good at creating a curriculum. Last week, we've been talking about, we have a clinic in myopia control in my college, but we've realized we really need to have a theoretical course, okay? We haven't got it yet, we need it. And one of my colleagues worked a really, really long time on creating a syllabus, and there were various problems with it. And I said, you know what? Let's ask ChatGPT. I told ChatGPT how many hours we had available, and ChatGPT came up with the perfect curriculum, divided up into how many hours on each subject, including learning outcomes, including how to assess and what percentages. It was absolutely perfect, and it was, less than 10 seconds pretty much to get it. So once we start using AI to create materials, to create exams for us and exam questions and simulations, life will definitely get easier. Now, AI can also be used to grade and give feedback to students. It can alert us to which students need extra help. You could use AI to handle repetitive tasks and student questions, obviously within limits. And it could give us feedback to improve our teaching methods. I think we should all be using AI because our students are going to be using AI. And I don't believe in telling students not to use AI. On the contrary, we just started recently our new semester, and I said to my first years, okay, go find some information and go ask AI. And they were a little like blown away. Yes, I want you to use AI. It's a tool and you have to be able to use it. And I think any university or any teacher who thinks their students are not or should not be using AI, it's a little bit like in the old days saying, don't use a calculator. Of course they're going to use a calculator.
Or not use Google.
They're going to use Google. And you know what? If AI is going to give them better information than Google, then I'm all in favor of them getting the better information. Now, one of the things that AI is really great at, apart from making these really cool pictures, which I love, clinical case scenarios. We can break our heads thinking up a clinical case for a student, or we can send the student with a certain set of questions to AI, and then AI itself presents the student with a clinical case scenario and can give the student feedback on their decisions, adjust the case difficulty for the student levels, and then you can have all this training going on without actually having real patients. So this is something I think is very underutilized at the moment in optometry departments, and I think it's got tremendous potential for enriching our students' experience. In terms of research, anybody who's used AI in research knows that it's an absolute amazing tool. It's like having an assistant that I send off to the library or I send off to PubMed or Google Scholar, and it does the work for me. It can find articles, it can review articles, it can summarize articles, it can improve accuracy. You can also use AI for translation or even transcribing if you're doing an interview. However, you do need to be careful because for those of you who are not familiar, AI will give you references which don't exist, or will give you quotes from a reference that does exist, but the quote doesn't exist. There's a little bit of fiction going on here. So as long as you double check the quotes and the references and the sources, it can save you hours and hours and hours of time, and also can rewrite things very nicely for you. Especially if English is not your native language, AI is fantastic about putting things into good English. Plus the cool pictures. Hope you're enjoying them. It's not easy bringing AI into college or into university. You've got the money issues. You have to train people how to use it. There is resistance to change, as there is with any new thing we try. And as Sonja mentioned before, there's the data privacy concerns, from putting in information about students, that's an issue. You want to make sure that the students have equal access. And then, of course, there's maintenance and updates. So it's doable, but you have to be careful with it. Sonja, over to you.
Thank you. And then you've got the ugly side of AI, and some of them you've already mentioned. What we see is the copy-paste information. Yes, you can use AI if you have to write an article. However, this article, so let's say you have to write an article for the local paper. In the end, people can ask you questions about it, and if you haven't written it yourself, you don't know what's in there. So copy-paste information is not a good idea. It's the same for when you're making a PowerPoint. AI can make the complete PowerPoint, but in the end, you have to explain it to patients. And if you don't have your own knowledge about the subject, it's going to be very difficult to explain it. As Dinah already mentioned, there's the hallucination. So it's the false information. It's where an article doesn't exist, or the writer doesn't exist, or the information doesn't exist that is in the so-called article. There's the inaccurate references. So this is one that we have to teach our students as well, how to check for references. And there's the incorrect translation. The other day, I asked one of my students to write a reflection, and they struggled with the Dutch language. In the end, she actually used AI, and some of the words were so weird because we use in language, we sometimes have a double meaning of a word. And if it's not your native tongue, you actually won't understand it. And it actually gives you the most weird sentences there are. So this is one that we have to be aware of ourselves as well, that when we are using translations for whatever we're writing, that we have to make sure that it is correct. Now we get... Sorry, Dinah.
I was just going to say, I recently used AI to transcribe some interviews I'd done, and was quite surprised to find that it actually made things up. It wasn't an incorrect transcription. AI decided to put words into my mouth and put words into my interviewees' mouths. So there were questions which I hadn't asked and answers which I had not received. So I really had to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. It was a fantastic tool. It saved me hours of typing out these interviews, but you have to check it and recheck it and check it again.
And this is another example why it's not going to replace us.
Soon.
But that's actually our next question, because we've got this... Because you had the Mentimeter, what was the answer to that? How many people can AI replace us? How many people said yes or no? Was it...
No, we haven't asked this question yet. We have to go back to the Mentimeter again. Yeah. If your Mentimeter is still open, then go back to it. If you haven't gone on the Mentimeter yet, then you can go. It's the same Mentimeter. It's just one more question I haven't done. I need to stop share so I can go and do it. And the next question on the Mentimeter, let me just find it. Oh, no, it's not there. Never mind. So we're going to go back to... Oh, yes, it was. Can it replace us? No, yes, we're not sure. You're quite right. I did do it already. So now, in fact, I'm going to stop sharing. And the question is, there's a few questions. How can AI help us? I would add on, for the people who've never used AI, how can you start? And I'm happy to answer that. And are we scared that AI is going to replace us? So who wants to start? And I'm happy to do that if no one else wants to. And it would be great if you could put your cameras on that we could see you. Make us feel more like we're having a discussion here.
I can see Kyriakos who has a question.
I have some comments. I have some comments to do. So AI, it is an investment. So we need money. And if it's going to replace us, it depends how clever will be this machine. So it depends how many money you are going to throw people through money in this machine.
But there are AIs that are free. The regular
okay.
is free.
Okay, but can you imagine after 15 years the next generation of AI?
For sure.
I learned last week in a conference here in Cyprus we have now a company, OCT company with artificial intelligence. You upload the pictures. They charge in each patient, in each upload, €2.50, and you have the results.
And there's, of course, the risk, are you going to trust what they're saying? And you've paid €2.50.
Okay, nowadays,
Yes.
think
yes.
about after 5 years or after 10 years. I will trust after 10 years. Now you have to make double check.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's also, of course, what we had with the OCT. I remember a time when there was only the hospitals that had an OCT, and now most practitioners have it. So it's the same with the machinery that actually recognizes disease. That's the investment that we as practitioners might do in 10, 15 years. And again, you can ask then, is it only going to be for those living in the rich countries? Are countries like Africa going to actually have advantages? Are they where we really need a lot of patients seen? Are they able to use AI? Are the structures there? Is the internet there?
I think we're not, even someone like myself who uses AI quite a bit, I think we've really just touched the tip of the iceberg. I think we don't realize how AI can help us and how many things AI can help us with. I'm on various Facebook groups of AIs just to learn more and see more how people, and there was just somebody asked last week, what do you use AI for that you wouldn't think? And it was a lot of people said they put in their medical records, they put in their blood tests, and they ask AI what they should do. And in some cases it was, we can't get hold of a doctor, or I've got a month to wait. And in some cases, they wanted to compare it to what the doctor said. And the overwhelming feeling on the group I saw was that the AI was giving really, really good answers to them. I've used it also for planning itinerary. Oh, George, yes. You want to say something? Hi, George.
Hi, first, thanks for the interesting presentation. It was interesting. Thanks. So I wonder, or my question is also to you and the colleagues here. So I think AI in short term is a kind of overestimated and in long term underestimated. I think actually in my practice, I'm using AI a little bit for OCT interpretation, for example. But so this times I don't see a big advantage because the things, I mean, the common eye diseases and also for the fundus pictures, the common eye diseases I can detect by myself. I don't need AI. It is going to be more interesting with the very rare diseases, what I'm not so used to see that often. So yeah. So actually, I don't see a big impact in my practice, actually. Maybe in 15, 20 years, it could be a completely other thing. So my question is to you and the colleagues who is using AI and see an advantage, and in what field you have this kind of advantage, actually.
Yes, thank you for that question, Georg.
Is anybody here using AI in practice, apart from Sonja and yours? So perhaps no one here is actually using it.
Nobody want to say something. They want to keep the secrets for themselves. No,
The secret.
the secret AI.
Has anybody here used it in any educational setting, either for themselves or with the students?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to know that.
Brendan?
I actually have.
Rachel, yes, Rachel.
Hi there. Yeah, an educational system. I had them make up a dilemma. I teach vision therapy. So I had them do a dilemma and have ChatGPT answer the dilemma, and then they had to comment about the ChatGPT of the, what they decided from the dilemma.
And what did your students think of it? What did they think about the answer that Chat gave them? Because I did something similar, and my students were shocked.
I wanted them to say positive things and negative about, so what did they agree with, what did they not agree with? So they all worked something out. Yeah. Unless they ask ChatGPT what they agree with and not agree with.
Also a possibility. I think a lot of educators are very scared about ChatGPT. And I think, I was just saying to Sonja before, I think we're very lucky that we're in optometry. Because I think if we were teaching something like history or literature, I don't know how we would cope with students handing in papers that had been written by ChatGPT. However, or any other AI tool. I think as optometry educators, we have a huge advantage because we can test their clinical competency, and that's what we do. And obviously, no AI is going to be a substitute for that. So it doesn't worry me as much as perhaps if I was in a different discipline that it would worry me. I just recently saw a very interesting podcast of somebody not from optometry who was talking about using it in education. And he said he gives his students a certain task. And then instead of getting the answers, he asks them to send him screenshots of their conversation with ChatGPT or the AI tool. And that is so interesting because you can see from the questions the student is asking, you can see what their knowledge is and how their knowledge is improving. So I thought that was a very interesting concept to use ChatGPT or use any AI tool in that way as well. And I think we should be the ones teaching our students how to use it responsibly and not expect them to learn this on our own. And I don't want to be overtaken by my students and have them know much better than I how to use it.
We've used it as well. Students always ask us for questions, and like, why are you not using AI? Because AI can come up with such amazing questions, and you can ask them for 10 questions, 20, 30, 40, and most of my students said, I never thought about it. I said, you don't need me to give you the questions. Ask them. You can put the slides in there and say, can you create 4 or 5 questions about the subject? And that way they can actually find out all the stuff they don't know. So in education, it's such a handy tool.
I was interested that my students I actually did a quick survey and found out some of my students had never ever tried AI. But I reckon if I ask that question in about 2 or 3 years, I'm going to get a very different answer.
Absolutely, I agree. Because it's partly because they are being told not to use it because they're too scared for plagiarism. And it's like, well, if when I ask Google for 5 different research articles, I still have to make a story out of it. And that's the same with AI. They still have to research whether it's true or not. And make it their own, and especially in my language, of course, they have to translate it into Dutch, and that also already changes it as well. Yeah.
So may I say something?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, we are at the border in Olten in Switzerland, starting to implement AI in our teaching, and we had a very interesting talk from a specialist from our university, just to show us all the possibilities and how he uses the prompts. And he's also a professional user of ChatGPT. And at the end, I was really surprised that he was all the negative parts he told us, except the environmental and except the social part and what it does to our societies. And he's one of the users, really like a nerd. Well, it was so interesting. I saw he at the end he said, yes, this is not my part of business. I just use it. I see all these advantages, and I know I have double check, but the time advantage is so huge if I use it correctly. And so it's the same what all of you said. And I really agree with the advantages. But I see that you are mentioning all the other parts at the side, and I really appreciate that you do. Thanks for this. And we just okay, this is not from me. Okay, yeah, and I'm really aware how important it is for us to define what we as a society in our respective countries want to, what our values are, what do we want to use it for. And for diagnosis, we are really on a high level actually, and I'm really excited what it can do in our teaching to improve our teaching also. But there is a huge other side, this dark side, we really have to keep in mind.
Yes, thank you for that. Brandon, you also wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with a number of things that were said. I mean, I think it's totally naive, I think, to think that our students won't use it. So even if we tell them not to use it, they're definitely going to use it. It's just a matter of time. Even the reluctant ones will get on board with it, and that's great. That's exactly what should happen, because it is going to be so useful. I think it's really important that we teach our students to learn how to learn in the future, and that's how, you know, an awful lot of it is going to be AI driven. I haven't really got on board with it very much because I'm not naturally minded in that respect. I mean, I have used it a little bit for putting cases together and stuff like that. But one thing I did run into is I don't think we have an institutional subscription, so I don't think we're paying a fee to. So I was using the free versions, and I did run out of road pretty quickly. Really, I just wondered, do you have institutional subscriptions there? So
so because of the security reasons, we have to use Copilot, and that's paid version.
Okay.
My institution is just starting now to look at AI, both for educational needs, but also for administrative needs. We feel there's so much that can be used, AI, to speed up processes and reports and everything else. And of course, there is the issue of cost, and there is the issue of data privacy, but we have to work our way through that labyrinth of issues. I personally have just paid, I was doing research, so I just paid for myself because I needed it for my research. And of course, once you do it, it's very addictive. You can't go back from that. One of my students said AI is like a brother to her. I thought it was such a cute way of describing it. For those of you who've never ever used AI, just Google ChatGPT, go into the free version, and the trick is it's not Google. You don't put in a word and expect a search. You have to imagine there's a person there, and you have to have a conversation and talk to this other person and tell them what you're looking for. And sometimes they'll give you the wrong thing. I had a file just last week. I put in this complicated Excel file and asked AI, whatever, to ChatGPT, to split it into two. I gave it all the parameters. It said, here it is. It hadn't done it. I said, try again. You didn't do it. And on the fourth try, after I slightly tightened up the instructions, did a perfect job. And at the end of the day, it definitely saved me time. It would have taken me a long time to have done that on my own. So I think using it, Sonja mentioned using it to write letters. It's such a good letter writer in any language. I mean, I use it in English, I use it in Hebrew, I use it in French, and it really worked fantastically for me. So, just on that level, and you don't only have to use AI for optometry, for clinical, or for education. You can use it to plan itineraries for holidays. You can use it to ask advice. And my feeling is the more you use it, the better you will be at using it. Somebody mentioned the word prompt. If you're not familiar with AI, then that word won't mean something to you. The prompt is the instructions that I give to AI. And it's almost like having a dialogue, because sometimes I can give a prompt, I can type in something, and AI doesn't quite get what I'm asking. So it gives me an answer, and then we have this little dialogue going. So for those of you who've never tried it, just do it. Just go on and just ask anything that pops into your mind. It can be optometry, it can be non-optometry, and just get your feet wet, and you'll find that you'll roll with it, and it'll become easier and easier.
The thing I like is that you can also ask, can you explain it as if I'm 15 years old or 20 years old, or can you explain it as if I'm a university student? And that's a great one, because sometimes there's certain things, and I say that to my students, especially if it's about anatomy, just ask him to explain it to you as if you are a high school student. And then it actually brings down the language a little bit, which is absolutely great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it can really tailor itself to each student and where they are.
Yeah. Just make a comment here. Clinically, I do use AI to screen for diabetic retinopathy among diabetes patients. We do that a lot. And I think the implication is that unlike human, they have higher precision, higher repeatability as well. Human, we sometimes get tired, exhausted, the fatigue is there. So I think clinically AI does have an advantage over human. But my question is that with the use of AI in education, for example, are there any kind of ethical concern do you encounter or foresee when using AI in education?
So I'm going to take that.
Yes.
I was once told there's 3 types of questions. There's a good question, and that's a question I know the answer to. There's an excellent question, that's a question I had a slide prepared for. And then there's an interesting question, which I don't know the answer to. So thank you, Ving. That was an excellent question. And I'm in fact going to go back to the PowerPoint a little bit, because we actually have a few more slides about that.
Yes, and especially about the ethical implications. So what we need to teach and our students, but also what we have to learn ourselves, are the ethical implications. How are you going to use it for diagnostics and clinical reasoning? And are we going to believe the screen or professional judgment? And the first thing is on the next slide is, can AI replace us as teachers and optometrists? One of the things it won't be able to do is empathy. We all respond to our patients, whether they're angry, happy, sad, scared. It is something the AI can't do. We respond to it straight away. With my students, 1 minute they're happy, 1 minute they're sad or angry. I just adjust it. If there are certain questions that I explain to my patient and they don't understand it, I change it. Those are the quick things that we as human beings can do. There's another thing, collaboration. I mean, what we're doing here we've got people from the whole of Europe. We're collaborating. It's something that AI can't do. If I want to talk to my GPs or government, you need to have this human touch. You build up trust between people. It is something that AI can't do. The small differences between patients, why I'm going to treat one patient and not the other, it's a decision that we make as clinicians, and often it is based on just slight things that a patient has said. If I've got a patient with a cataract who drives every single day, he just wants to have his cataract done, I might refer sooner. Or there might be the older lady that says, I don't want to have my cataract done because I'm too scared. Yes, I can ask AI what to do. However, it does not take into account this person, this human being that I've got in front of me. And in this picture, it's quite interesting to see that you see the hand doing the eye examination, but making the decision between is one better or two. Am I going to take lens 1 or 2? Am I going to change the axis? Quite often that is experience, and that's not something that AI can do. And the ethics, and both of us in a moment, Dinah will talk about ethics in education, and I will take over to talk about ethics in optometry. I think that is a very, very important part, because ethics is all to do with gender, culture, values. There's so many things that implement the decision making in that. So, Dinah, if you would like to talk about ethics in education and AI.
And just before I do, just to be clear, this slide, I made this slide using ChatGPT, not just for the picture, but for the actual content as well. I said to what do you think? Can you replace us? And these are the things that AI came up with. Not all of them. Some of them I changed. There was a few more. It has my input, but basically this slide was prepared with an enormous amount of help from AI. So what are the ethical issues, which I think Ving just mentioned? So yeah, we have a slide for that. You're worried about cheating. Oh, the truth is, I'm worried about cheating without AI as well. Cheating exists without anything. The next one is something that does bother me, less critical thinking. Maybe students will become too reliant on AI and they won't be thinking themselves of how to solve a problem. To me, that's a very, very real issue and a real problem. Reduced effort, same thing. An easy answer can mean less learning. Students might become too dependent on AI. And again, we have the issue of data privacy, but then again, we have the issue of not the equal access. If you're talking something paid and it's not offered to all students, then you are going to get this ethical issue for some students will have more access than others. So yes, these issues definitely exist. And I think it's a learning curve. We're learning as we go along. Just preparing this Academy hour, I learned things from Sonja, Sonja learned things from me, and we're both pretty good at using AI, but every time I use AI, I learn something else. And obviously one of the things we need to learn is how to deal with these ethical issues. So,
And if we look at it from the point of view of optometry, it's keeping the data safe, protecting patient information. If you would put in all the information, all the data of a patient, so name, addresses, that's actually putting everything out there. You don't want that. There's also the fairness, making sure AI works well for everyone. Is it available for everyone? Are the machinery used? Are they exactly the same to the same standards? And one that is, we're all reflective practitioners. If we start to rely too much on AI, we're not reflecting anymore on our own knowledge. And reflection makes that difference. And reflection is actually that thing that makes us grow, that makes us decide to pick up an optometry today to learn something, to watch a video, to sit here and during the academy hours. And there's also the thing in the end, who is actually responsible when a mistake has been made? Is it me? Is it AI? Who knows? So in the end, at the moment, we're still responsible. And I think we should still be responsible. But what happens when when AI becomes that advanced and mistake is being made? Is it certain? Is it the manufacturer of the machine that gets responsible? That is what ethics is all about. And with ethics, it's also, there's not always a yes or no answer. Keep that in mind as well. We like to have a yes or a no, but ethics has to basically look at the full picture of everything. And that is one which we have to watch and we have to be very aware of, because it's only when we are aware of these questions that we can make sure that we do the best for our patients and the safest way for our patients as well. Can go to the next slide. So the bottom line of all this is that the sooner we learn, the better. It's not going to go away, and it is there. It's going to help us much more than we think. It's going to assist us better in patient care and also in education. And the most important is we need to know how to use it properly and safely. And I've seen some chats as well.
We're gonna have more. We have got some more time for some more discussion. I just want to say two things. First of all, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Here are our, if anybody wants a copy of the PowerPoint, very happy to send it. You can just send me an email or Sonja, although I haven't actually downloaded it, so maybe send it to me. The other thing is, I would like to say, I'm just going to stop share a second. Sonja, do you want to have a look at the chats while I'm talking?
Yes,
I'm going to use this time for a shameless plug.
Thank you. I really like the comment from Petri. She says, currently AI is great sparring partner in screening tool in optometry. Unfortunately, there's not much discussion about the clinical decision-making. Legal responsibility still remains with the optometrist. And if you read the fine print, all current AI platforms state that they are not responsible. And of course, I can understand that, because you can imagine the legal lawsuits that come from this. And this also, again, gets us back to the reflection side of it. In the end, we are still responsible what we are teaching students, but also how we treat our patients. And it is a tool. And as you mentioned when we started, it's not going to take over.
I just want to add on, using this platform as an opportunity. In the European Academy of Optometry and Optics, we have various special interest groups. I'm running the education group, so and that's something I would like to use as a platform to discuss AI in education specifically, amongst other things. So feel free to go onto the EAO website and log into the special interest group of education. Sonja, do you want to say something?
Yes, there's also some questions. Can you email things to me? For those that don't know, of course, this was recorded, so you can always look through the video again. And yes, we can send the PowerPoint to you personally if you like. But again, you can also have a look at our website and review the video again.
So I'd love to hear if anybody else has comments on what we said or what we didn't say, anything you'd like to add to the discussion? Ving, did I address your concerns about ethical implications?
Yes, very much, very much. Because even at the university where I'm working at, one of the questions that everyone is asking is, how do I know if a student has cheated using AI? And with a 2,000, 3,000 word essay, it is very difficult for us to actually detect that unless we are, we are expert in that field and we look at the references, we can spot, these are not real references, or these sounds too good to be true. But many people find it a bit there's reservation in using it or having a student use them because they just can't detect whether a student has, cheated.
Right. And my point of view is I would assume that everyone is using it, that everyone should use it, and therefore my assessment of the student has to change. It has to be based on something other than writing a long essay full of information, which didn't necessarily go through the head. Just last week, I gave my students a very little minor task of a question and put the answer in, and they did a really good job. And then in class, I asked them, and they couldn't answer because they hadn't actually gone via their brain. It had gone via the copy-paste into the assignment, and I reflected it back at them. And I think that's part of the learning process and part of us as educators showing our students how to use AI responsibly, but it's never going to be a substitute for their own brains.
Mm-hmm. And it's also partly professional attitude as well, because cheating, it's not something new. Even before AI, we had a lot of cheating. And I always say, if you cheat, every morning you have to look in the mirror and think, gosh, I cheated since Sonja's class. And I think that's not something to be proud of. So that professional attitude is important. And, we can't stop it from happening. And as soon as we notice it, as I already said, I had a few students use it, and I just have a chat with them. So, what is it you've shown me here? Why are you using it? What are you struggling with? And I think that is, as educators, also important. Why are students using it? Is it out of desperation because they don't understand the task? And we have to explain the task better. And also, we have to look at different ways of teaching and assignments as well. It's the changing world we live in. And I've always been lived in, actually. I don't see any more questions.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us, and hopefully we'll see some of you in Ljubljana in May for the Academy Conference.